This might look like a boring endgame. You got a bishop, you got a knight, you got some pawns and the kings, and why do we care about this? Let me tell you, this was the most incredible game that I've played in a very long time. The way that it ended was absolutely stunning. You're going to enjoy this. I had to share it with someone. This is more exciting than the World Chess Championship, if I can just say that. I'm doing recaps of those games, but trust me when I say I think you're going to enjoy this a little bit more. All right, let's just jump to the beginning and we'll show you what happened here. So I'm playing as white, and he plays the French defense, and I play the Alpine Gambit, where I give up this pawn for free. The idea is that I'm going to play f3 next and either recapture it or let him take me and then just get quick development and use this open f-file to hopefully attack in the future. All right, so he does take, I recapture it, knight comes out, I develop to the bishop, I castle, and I bring out the knight. So I've got all my pieces out quickly. I'm castled. I'm ready to start looking for attacking opportunities. Knight c6 happens now. And I don't like when the knight comes here and gets this bishop, because this is a very nice attacking bishop. And so I did feel like it was useful to play the move a3 just to stop the knight from coming in there. Okay, knight to g4. So black says, okay, if I can't get that bishop, I'm going to go get the other one. And I decided to let him have it and just play king h1. Not the best move. Apparently, just bringing the rook to d1 was better, because that's going to be a very useful spot for the rook. I was thinking, like, I don't want my king to be on this diagonal, because a lot of times there's annoying checks, and if this pawn ever moves, the bishop can come in, and I just felt like it was safer over there. Stockfish obviously disagrees with me. So he gets the bishop, I recapture, and bishop to f6, a huge blunder. You can see the eval bar jumping up. Why was that a big mistake? Well, hopefully you noticed that the queen is now lined up on the king, which means this pawn is pinned. It cannot capture, which means I can play d5 and black can't take me back, which means they have to move their knight. Of course, you can't take here because I'll take the queen. And after they move the knight, I get to capture here and bust open black's king. This is awful for black, and I knew that it was bad. I knew that I was in a good position, and yet I messed it up. What would you guys play in this position right here? All right, well, if you said queen takes e6, you would be just like me. That's the wrong move, and that's a big mistake. Now, the move that I should have played, and I was thinking about it, I was literally this close to playing it, was rook to d1. And my idea was, if I play rook to d1, I'm threatening to win his queen. For example, if you try to castle, boom, there's a check, and then I get the queen, okay? So that is kind of my idea, and it's a hard threat to stop, right? Because you might say, okay, well, I just won't castle. Well, guess what? I have other checks with my bishop that you can't stop all the checks unless you're going to play a random move like king f8, but that looks awful, right? And so I wasn't sure what they were going to do. Then I noticed, wait a second, queen to c8. They just move the queen, and they defend this pawn, and I'm like, I don't really want to let them defend that pawn. I want to take that pawn. Now, Stockfish says, who cares? If I play knight g5 here, I'm totally winning. I'm coming in with the knight unless they trade, but then the queen's coming in. This is awful for black. I could have also played just a simple bishop c4, unleashing the rook and attacking here again. There's so many winning moves, okay? Taking the pawn was the wrong decision. And apparently it was because of exactly what they played, queen d7, and now I basically have to trade queens or just waste time retreating, and I don't really have anything, because after queen d7, they're going to have multiple options to castle and get their king to safety. And so I kind of realized my mistake at this point, but I was like, well, what am I going to do? Decided to go ahead and trade and bring the rook over now. Okay, so they go rook here, and I wanted to disconnect their rooks. I didn't want their rooks to stay connected, so I didn't want to allow the king to go back here where the rooks are, you know, working together. So I played bishop f5 check to take that option away from the king. Notice this is not a threat on my bishop because the rook is also attacking the king. It's a double check, okay, check by both pieces. So they have to go king e8. Brought my bishop in. I felt like, okay, this is a good square, kind of controls where the king can go. It seems like a nice square, but bishop c8, he wants to trade. Okay, so it looks like we're going to, you know, an endgame. But I said, all right, this maybe is a moment where I can put some pressure on the king. So I jumped the knight into d5. I'm threatening to win a pawn, but I'm also threatening to maybe think about going here or here with my rook, make the king move, and if I can get both knights jumping in with the support of the rooks on the king, that could be very dangerous, okay? And I'll show you here in just a second what I'm talking about. So c6 happens, and I played knight c7 check. Now, the idea here is the king doesn't have a lot of options. Okay, if you go to f8, you guys should be able to see the move I'm going to play relatively quickly. That's right, it's knight e6 check, an exceptional fork. Okay, so you don't want to go there. If you go here, this one's a little bit more tricky, but if you look carefully, there's also going to be a nice move, knight to e5 check. So you stop the king from going here and here. If it goes back, you walk into that fork again. If it goes here, there's now a new fork on c6. And if the king goes here, well, I didn't see exactly what I was going to do, but it just felt like it was going to be bad for black. Yeah, we can just trade. What does Stockfish say here? Knight e8 is the best move. Okay, I don't know if I would have played that, but the point is the king is stuck, the rook is stuck in the corner, blocked by the king. It's a bad position. I could see that, right? So that's kind of my idea with the check. The problem is king e7 is a great move. And I don't have a fork. I don't have a threat with my knight here because the king's on a different square. I don't really have anything. I decided to go check, try to keep the rooks on the board, but then it allows the king to escape over here. And now my knight's under attack. I have to move it, and my attack is basically fizzling out, okay? So it's looking like we're heading towards this boring endgame. I move my knight. He goes back. I play c3 to save my pawn. Okay, fine. The knight comes in. I play g4. I wanted to let my king into the game. I didn't really know what else to do. Okay, h6. We go with the check. I go back. Okay. He trades this. And here we are. This is starting to look not so great for me for a couple of reasons. Number one, the bishop is totally dominating my knight. Look at this. All the squares that my knight would like to move to forward is being taken away by the bishop. Not good. The other thing that's not good for me is the pawns are all on the same color as this bishop, which means they're constantly going to be targets. And if I ever try to move one like this guy, I lose a pawn. Or this guy, I lose a pawn, right? So this is not an ideal situation for me. Okay, so he takes this. The other thing you'll notice is the clocks are ticking down, okay? And that's a key part of what happens in the rest of the game, sort of. We get the knight against the bishop. Okay, so at this point I'm like, if his king gets here and he sneaks in here, I'm done for. I have to get my king as quickly as possible, and that's what I was trying to do. I also didn't want to lose this pawn. So I'm thinking, like, how can I get my king in, up there? So I go here, and if black would have played king d5, I honestly don't know what I was going to do. I think I was probably just going to lose. And one part about king d5 is I can't go knight d2 to stop the king. Do you guys see why? That's right, bishop g5 check, and I'm losing my knight to the skewer. So I was in a really bad situation here. Okay, let's just say that. Caught a break. Okay, my opponent's moving fast. I don't know why the times are a little bit off there. I apologize for that. I don't know if this makes it any better. Yeah, that's a little bit better. Okay. I caught a break here because my opponent goes b5 instead of king d5. And by not going king d5, they allow me to go king e4, which is exactly where I needed my king to be to box out black's king. So I have no idea what they were thinking there, but I got to that light square. I'm away from the bishop. Finally, I'm like, okay, maybe I can hold on here for a draw. They push the pawn. And I decided to go for this sacrifice. Now, in my mind, it was a good idea because I didn't want to just let black cement these pawns on dark squares where the bishop can one day in the future like come and gobble them up, right? So I said, okay, let me just play a4. If you take it, you're going to have to totally mess up your pawn structure. Surely that must be good for me. Now, Stockfish disagrees for some reason, but that was my idea. I'm like, okay, fine. Now I'll go knight c2. I at least created this square that my knight can use. He moves, I jump in, he moves, I defend. I'm like, hey, this is looking pretty good. Now my king is actually active. a3. I'm like, wait a second. I don't have to take with the pawn and let the bishop in. I can just take with the knight, check. And he probably was thinking that he was going to come in with his king. So he goes king a4. But king to a4 actually gets black checkmated. Checkmated. If you want to pause the video, where is the checkmate? Yeah, if you had a chance to look at that, it's actually not that hard. King c4, and the king is totally trapped. Look at this. The king cannot move anywhere. And what's amazing is even though you have this bishop, you can't do anything about it because my king is on a light square. And there's nothing you can do. Also, this guy is blocking in the king from escaping that way. It's actually incredible. This guy is stopping the bishop from threatening my knight. It's amazing. He's in a mating net, and he's going to get checkmated, and there's nothing that he can do about it. He played h5. I played knight to b5 because I need my knight to not be there because otherwise he gets captured. And guess what? b3 is happening, and there's nothing that you can do about it. There's nothing you can do about it. Can't move the king. You can't control that square. He tried to sacrifice, and I said, no, I'm not really interested in that. I played b3 checkmate. Actually, this would have been maybe even cooler. I don't know. It's hard to say. That's a pretty cool checkmate too. But I wanted to do it with the pawn because, well, to be honest, that's the only one I saw. But that's the only one I needed to see because it's... I wanted to share it with someone. I mean, look at this position. What is happening? Wow. See, this is the stuff You just don't get this in the World Champ. I will say the World Championship has been pretty exciting so far. So I don't want to knock it. It's been we've had some good games. So let me not say anything about that. But this is pretty nice, right? What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments. Hope you enjoyed that, and I mean I certainly did. This is a lot of fun. So stay sharp, play smart, take care.